Jessica, grateful for the engagement. I really appreciate the time it took to put down the different details of some of your thoughts. And I've had many of these same conversations with thousands of voters, American citizens, and they represent all classes, everyone from, the lower economic class that's struggling even for that rent payment of next month to ones that have a couple $1,000,000 in the bank. Everybody is concerned about the wealth inequality that exists in America. Anybody that's woke, that reads, that has a heart, that realizes that you cannot take your possessions to the grave. You cannot allocate those funds equally in a way that makes sense for all Americans right now. There's a lot of billionaires on the left that want to do the right thing. Look at their charities. Look at the different agreements they've signed to have all their wealth distributed among any type of initiative that helps with education, healthcare. And there's just not an efficient way to do that within the government right now. And there's so many different partisan disagreements about the most basic things that no one in Congress or in the White House is actually thinking about the American public. They're simply thinking about their tails. How do they stay into office? How do they make sure they deceive one another? And unfortunately, the only person that can actually make a difference is the President of the United States. So if we elect somebody that has logic and understands the struggles that all Americans are going through, especially the lowest economic class, it's almost to the point that it compares to a third world nation. So let's go through each of your topics. And the first is work hours. Let's look at countries like Italy. They have a 2-hour lunch. They make some of the finest motorcycles. People show up on time, they leave on time. They're able to coordinate the hours to offset traffic. There's just a collaborative effort. Why? Because they fought for unions. And so the only way that we're going to make progress in these work hours is to allow and encourage unions so that the lower and middle economic class can start having a mobility upwards. Because right now, the 99%, their wealth, it does not even compare when you're talking about the 1%. There's a new billionaire every week in America, just as there's new homeless vets in America, just as there's people that are being locked up in cages for not being able to have a lawyer, or because they were deceived by some type of public offender trying to have the highest rates so that he can run for office. And then those officers take in the super PAC money and they deceive and they create further income inequality. And so this is the capitalism world that we think we live in, but we don't. Otherwise, why would we do bank bailouts? Why would we allow anybody that use speculative cash to risk American taxhold dollars, right, for their own monetary gain? And then the government simply prints our own money to offset their crime. We don't do that with the lowest economic class. We don't help the inner cities. There's no government initiatives going toward that. So we live in an elitism world, not a capitalism world. The elite determine the laws. And so think about the power of the president at this time in 2020. With all the laws, look at the 4 previous presidents. They all created different initiatives to allow the president of the United States to have more power. So right now we are seeing the office used for destruction. Destruction of our planet, our children's future, the climate, everything is being destroyed. But imagine when the pendulum swings and somebody that actually wants to spend 20 hours a day nonstop helping the environment, helping the lowest economic class rise, because there is no poverty in the United States of America that I envision. The homelessness needs to end. We must rehabilitate. We have so many structures, so much infrastructure, so much tax dollars that can be used toward the improvement, the growth, and the economic gain for all. Because this is not a fixed pie that you can divide up. You can think that way, or we can think about growing our GDP, allowing the lowest economic class to have unions, to have worker rights, to have minimum wages, be able to spend weeks with their family on maternity leave, being able to have health coverage that's granted, being able to take a month vacation without having any type of repercussions on your work, because productivity is what matters, not hours. And if you're stuck in traffic an hour each way because of our infrastructure limitations for the public sector, and then you're stuck there for lunch, you're really at a 10, 12-hour day because you're expected to communicate with workers during those times. So if we are investing in our companies, in our technological innovations, if we're encouraging renewable energy, if we have the government sector really able to incentivize the private sector in all aspects of the future, the public sector can encourage unions, can encourage worker rights. So I encourage longer vacations. I encourage higher wages. I encourage unionization, because stockholders should not just try to increase profits every year. And that's what's happening. That's the only way their stock price will go up. And the 1%, that's all that it is. It's a money game. Am I a billionaire? Am I able to buy this jet, et cetera? But the lowest economic class can't even afford a home. They can't even afford the most basics. And we live in a world where we're only on this planet for so much time. We should worry about, being a good human. We should worry about if we've read the latest book to expand our knowledge, or if we spend enough time with our family expressing our love and our gratitude. It shouldn't only be worrying about your mortgage payment, or buying this, or being able to just buy food. You look at how many millions of Americans are struggling, yet so-called the economy is doing so great. Those are just stock prices of the capitalistic greed. The average American wages haven't increased in 30 years if you look at the cost of living index. And look at our national debt. Even though we don't protect our own, even though we're not investing in social services and helping our inner city youth, yet we're still printing $20 trillion in debt on nuclear arms, on different tax breaks for oil and gas. We're only destructing our earth and our economy at the same time. That's the reason that we're having such dichotomy in thought, is that nobody knows how to really attack poverty, because everybody's struggling in many regards. Even the middle class, if you are check to check, even though you have $100,000 in equity in your house, but you might have a car payment of $700, or you might have college tuition, or this bill, or etc., you still are close to bankruptcy. I mean, think about if there is a drastic change in monetary policy, if there was a nuclear attack or anything like that, your life would be disrupted. You might be homeless within a couple of months. I mean, people are not looking at their savings, they're only looking at debt. And debt in our country keeps increasing. So in terms of the cost of living, I think it's ridiculous that Americans have to pay for internet. Think about that. We have to pay for water. We take water and we put it up in this plastic container, and then we drink it and then throw it in the oceans. Think how ridiculous that is. You have water in your tap. Why do we necessarily want to pollute our lands with fracking and make our water worse? Shouldn't we have the strongest, most efficient water purifiers at every state level and every city level, and our water should be the highest quality? Because think about this. The bottled water that you pay hundreds of dollars a month for, and look at your credit card bills, it's polluted with microplastics. So we have this great water infrastructure. We need to remove the lead. We need to look at how to make our water the highest quality. No more chlorine, no more fluoride, any type of pollutants. I mean, it should be one of the biggest initiatives, yet nobody's talking about these basic things. These are just hundreds of things we discuss in our administration every day. The last topic you brought up is solar. And you also brought in the fact of the economic side and the environment side. And I love the way you think about this, because it's the same way our movement does, in the sense that what if we did a simple thing and empowered and monetized all American initiatives to clean our planet? So you now have a couple acres in Alabama. You can put up some solar panels, and the government will pay you for your efficiency, because we're able to store that. And we can also export it to pay down the national debt. Let's say you live on the cliffs. You can easily be able to get a government-funded wind apparatus of any kind, right? There's many different ways. There's like 15 different designs. Some of them will match with your house or your design, so forth. So these are private contractors. And now we can be able to monetize your piece of land forever. Or imagine that geothermal is an option. So why wouldn't we try to solve the economic crisis that many Americans are in, while also improving our land with renewable energy by incentivizing the gathering, the aggregation, the storage of renewable energy that goes into our new renewable energy grid? Because keep in mind, our current grid is being controlled by the Russians, could easily be impacted by an EMP attack. Like the most basic thing people can do, which was intellectual warfare, which is happening, and the ability to take over some type of infrastructure system
from a software standpoint, which is happening. These are realities in the world we live in. So, as far as investments in infrastructure, our energy grid, so it can withstand an EMP attack, that someone can't take it over from a different country. That also encourages American initiatives for storing renewable energy to allow every American to be paid, right? I mean, think about that. Not only do I believe that the lowest economic class should not have taxes and that we should have some initiatives on that, because keep in mind, taxes have been only around for 100 years and they're at 1%. The fact that the lowest and middle economic class are paying any taxes is absolutely absurd if you look back hundreds and hundreds of years, right? So on top of these initiatives to solve the income inequality, I believe that we should be paying down our national debt by empowering the American public to store energy. I mean, think about that. What if suddenly we were able to gather the largest, most aggregate amounts of renewable energy that we could export, or that we could change over our entire energy system? Imagine transportation was actually fueled by the sun instead of the current way. I mean, think about these initiatives we're talking about. So the only way this could happen is if we really attack the problem with leadership. And these are the things we talk about, because it's not the ideas of campaigning, it's the ideas of the initiatives of tomorrow once in office. Because in 2020, when we're actually taking the keys, it's game on 1,000 initiatives. That just makes sense. So if we can solve a multitude of problems, ending poverty, the income inequality, the current destruction of our planet, the oil and gas initiatives, anything that's destroying our planet and also destroying our economic future of your family and the next generation. Because keep in mind, here's what used to happen in the American dream, is that one family would pass on inheritance, land, and so forth. What are we passing on to the next generations? Economic debt and the destruction of our planet. They're going to look back. We're talking about living on Mars and so forth, with radiation. And what are we thinking about? There's only one planet we live on. It's Earth. Yes, we eventually need to expand into these planets, but must we destroy our planet now, at this time, with so much that's happening? I mean, look at the way our body works. We're 72% water, just as the planet. We inhale a certain amount of oxygen to carbon dioxide. Like, we're terraforming our planet, and then we're eating the remains of our plastic waste and the fish and the water we drink. And it's status quo. It's no big deal to people. We can solve all these problems by just thinking about logical solutions. Economic stimulus for the lowest economic class while saving our planet. These are easy things to do. I mean, think about the things that mankind has accomplished. Look at the tunnel that goes underground between London and Paris. I mean, think about how you do that. Yet we can't put together 200 people in a room and say, hey, we're going to end this national debt. We're going to end poverty. We're going to end homelessness. And we're going to create a new renewable future. You know how many people care about these issues? People care, but the people are not in office because everybody's bought. And oil and gas is the big player. They're writing the checks. And climate science denial is their latest game. When the pendulum swings, we will save this planet and save the lowest economic class. For we should think about more than our bills and that economic anxiety we all experience. We should have family values. How are we going to do that? With time and love. How are you going to do that? With not having to worry about your future payments, your debt, by being able to have a little more economic security. That is when you're going to be able to really resonate as a human to another person and establish family values that lives on for generations. Because right now, everybody, lowest, middle, everybody's worrying about their finances. And we're about to go into a recession. There's no way that you can cut taxes, incentivize so many different polluters of our world with 20 trillion in debt, and lie about policies and not have some type of collapse. For keep in mind, we just removed so many regulations. I appreciate the initiatives and the engagement. Let me know if there's anything else I can answer. I'm always an open book. Grateful. God bless.